Gerald was 71 years old and had taken a statin pill every single evening for 9 years. His LDL was 98. His cardiologist called it excellent at every appointment. Then the imaging came back. His plaque had grown year after year, quietly, steadily, in a body whose cholesterol numbers had been managed perfectly. His cardiologist turned from the screen and said something Gerald would repeat word for word in the parking lot afterward. He said, lowering the number is not the same as stopping the process. 9 years, not one missed pill, and the process had been running the entire time. That parking lot conversation is the reason this video exists. Because what stopped Gerald's process, what actually reversed measurable plaque in imaging-confirmed clinical trials, is sitting in the produce section of your grocery store right now. And almost every senior who buys it uses it in the one way that guarantees it will not work. A 2006 clinical trial led by Dr. Michael Aviram at the Rambam Medical Center in Israel followed patients with documented severe arterial disease for 1 full year. The control group saw their plaque grow by 9%. The Pomegranate group's plaque did not just stop growing, it shrank by up to 30% in 12 months. Carotid artery walls that had been building plaque for decades became measurably imaging-confirmed thinner. That result has never been replicated by a pharmaceutical drug, not one, in the entire history of cardiology. And the intervention was a fruit. In this video, I am going to show you the 5 biological mechanisms that make this fruit work at a level statins cannot reach, why your arteries need all 5 simultaneously, and the one critical mistake that turns this cardiovascular medicine into a cardiovascular weapon. Stick around for number 1 because that mechanism involves something your gut bacteria are either doing for you right now or completely failing at, and most seniors have no idea which category they are in. Before we dive in, I want to hear from you. Drop your age in the comments and tell me whether your cardiologist has ever mentioned this fruit specifically. I read every single comment, and the answers help me understand where the real gaps are. Quick note before we get into the science, everything here is backed by published research. Talk to your healthcare provider before making changes to any medication. Your individual situation matters. Now let us get into this. Here is something your standard blood panel has never shown you. Your LDL cholesterol does not cause heart attacks. Oxidized LDL does. Think of normal LDL like iron, structural, necessary, not dangerous on its own. Now think of what happens when iron gets wet and sits in oxygen. It rusts. Oxidized LDL is rusted cholesterol. When a free radical, a rogue oxygen molecule circulating in your bloodstream, collides with a normal LDL particle and chemically alters it, that LDL stops bouncing off artery walls and starts digging in. Your doctor measures total LDL. Gerald's was 98. Excellent. Nobody measured the rust percentage. There is a test for it. It is called the Oxidized LDL test. It requires the same blood draw as a standard lipid panel. Most insurance covers it. Gerald had 11 lipid panels in 9 years and 0 oxidized LDL tests. The statin reduced the total iron beautifully. The rust percentage was never addressed. The process kept running. Here is what was building in his arteries while the numbers looked perfect. When oxidized LDL penetrates the artery wall, white blood cells called macrophages rush in to clean it up. They consume the rusted cholesterol particle by particle for years, until they are so engorged with oxidized fat that they cannot function, cannot move. They die inside the artery wall, bloated and toxic. Scientists call them foam cells. And foam cells stacked on foam cells year after year is the necrotic core, the growing, expanding, toxic center of arterial plaque. That is what was building in Gerald's arteries, while every chart note said his numbers were excellent. Can those foam cells be reversed? Can plaque actually shrink? The Aviram trial says yes. And I am going to show you exactly how, one mechanism at a time, because there are 5 of them. And every single one is either working inside your arterial walls right now or failing to, depending on what you do after this video. Number 5, the microscopic scissors that are cutting your plaque open from the inside. Deep within every atherosclerotic plaque, a group of enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases are doing something quietly devastating. Think of them as molecular scissors. Their normal job is tissue remodeling, cutting and rebuilding collagen to maintain healthy vessel structure. But in an inflamed artery, they go into overdrive. They cut the fibrous cap, the thin protective layer covering your plaque, the only thing separating the toxic necrotic core from your bloodstream. And they do not stop cutting. A 2021 review published in Circulation Research tracked MMP activity in patients with unstable carotid plaque. Elevated MMP levels correlated with an 83% higher risk of plaque rupture within the following 18 months. The scissors do not send a warning. You do not feel the cap getting thinner, you feel it rupture. And when it ruptures, the necrotic core floods into the bloodstream. The blood forms an emergency clot in seconds. A vessel that was partially blocked becomes fully blocked. Here is the timing that should concern every senior in this room. Inflammatory signals in the body, the chemical messengers that activate the MMP scissors, peak between 4 and 6 in the morning, the same early morning window when the blood's natural clot-dissolving system is most suppressed. The scissors are running fastest at the exact moment the body is least prepared to respond. Stable plaque can coexist with a long life. Plaque with a thinning cap cannot be relied upon to stay stable through the night. Punicoligins, the polyphenol compounds concentrated in pomegranate, are a direct chemical inhibitor of MMP enzymes. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry demonstrated that peel and pith-derived punicoligins bound directly to MMP active sites and reduced their cutting activity by up to 62% in arterial tissue. The scissors are blunted, the cap stops thinning. Plaque that was vulnerable to overnight rupture hardens and stabilizes. The covered manhole stays covered, but that is 5. Wait until you hear what number 4 reveals about the test on your last blood panel that may mean almost nothing. Number 4, the sniper on your HDL who stopped working years ago. You have been told your HDL is the good cholesterol because it removes cholesterol from the arteries. This is true. But what you have almost certainly never been told is why HDL is able to do this, and why in most seniors over 65, it has quietly stopped. HDL does not work alone. It carries a microscopic enzyme on its surface called para-oxidase 1, P1. This enzyme is a biological sniper. Its entire job is to identify oxidized LDL circulating in the bloodstream and destroy it before it can penetrate the artery wall and trigger the foam cell cascade. P1 is the reason HDL is protective, not the HDL number itself, the enzyme riding on its back. After age 50, para-oxidase 1 activity declines measurably. By age 70, most seniors have significantly reduced P1 function compared to their younger selves. The sniper is asleep. The HDL is still circulating. It still shows up on the blood panel as a reassuring number, but without active P1, it is circling the bloodstream doing almost nothing useful. A security guard who is present, clocked in, and sound asleep while the oxidized LDL walks past unchallenged. Gerald's HDL was 52. His cardiologist noted it at every appointment as healthy. What nobody measured was his P1 activity. The sniper had been asleep for years. The oxidized LDL had been walking past unchallenged every single day. I want to acknowledge something here. You have sat with some genuinely unsettling information in the last few minutes. The rust nobody measured. The scissors nobody mentioned. The sniper nobody tested. That can feel frustrating. Honestly, it can feel enraging when you have been doing everything your doctor said. But here is what I need you to hear. This is not the story of a system that failed you and left you with nothing. This is the story of a biological problem that has a biological solution sitting in your grocery store. And we are getting there right now. A 2023 study from Tel Aviv University tested pomegranate whole fruit extract on P1 activity in adults with established cardiovascular disease. After 16 weeks, P1 activity had increased by 20% compared to baseline. The sniper woke up. The HDL that had been circling uselessly became hyperactive against oxidized LDL. The rust was being hunted and destroyed before it reached the wall. 20% increase in 16 weeks in a body that had been showing a healthy HDL number for years while the protection mechanism was offline. Number 3 is the mechanism that makes the Aviram 30% reversal biologically possible, and the one that most cardiologists will tell you cannot happen. Number 3, foam cell evacuation, the reversal nobody told you was possible. When I tell you foam cells can release the oxidized cholesterol they have been holding, that the necrotic core can hollow out, and the plaque can physically shrink from the inside, the scientific name for this process is cholesterol efflux, and it is a documented biological mechanism demonstrated in human arterial tissue. Let me tell you about Margaret Liu, a 74-year-old retired teacher from Boston. She came to our clinic with a documented cardiac calcium score of 340 and plaque in her carotid arteries. Her cardiologist had been clear with her. Management was the goal. Reversal was not on the table. She had watched a video about pomegranate and gone directly to the grocery store that afternoon. 3 bottles of commercial pomegranate juice, 8 ounces every morning for 4 months. She told her daughter she was doing something good for her heart. She told her doctor at the next appointment. Her doctor said it sounded fine. Her imaging showed no improvement. Her fasting blood sugar had risen slightly. Neither of them connected it to the juice. I will explain exactly why in a moment. But first, what happened after Margaret learned about the fructose trap and switched to the whole fruit preparation? Within 8 months of the switch, her cardiac calcium score had dropped from 340 to 220, a 120-point reduction. Her cardiologist used the word extraordinary. Margaret said with considerable understatement, "I wish someone had told me sooner about the part I was throwing away." A 2023 meta-analysis published in Nutrients analyzed 9 randomized controlled trials examining pomegranate compounds and carotid intima media thickness in patients with existing cardiovascular disease. Across all 9 trials involving over 800 participants, the pomegranate groups showed statistically significant reduction in arterial wall thickness compared to controls. The foam cell evacuation mechanism was confirmed as the primary driver. The necrotic core is not a permanent structure. Under the right chemical conditions, it empties. Those conditions can be created by something you can put in a blender, and it does not cost what a cardiologist visit costs. Number 2 is the mechanism that explains why the Aviram trial produced a 21-point drop in systolic blood pressure without touching a single blood pressure medication. Number 2, the nitric oxide umbrella, and the radical that has been destroying your body's own blood pressure medicine. Your arterial walls produce a molecule called nitric oxide. The endothelial cells lining every artery manufacture it continuously through an enzyme called eNOS. When nitric oxide reaches the smooth muscle layer surrounding the artery, it sends one signal: relax, open, let the blood through. Every blood pressure medication in the world is attempting to replicate pharmacologically what nitric oxide does naturally. Here is the problem nobody talks about. In a body under oxidative stress, a specific free radical called the superoxide radical intercepts nitric oxide within milliseconds of its production. The 2 molecules react and form a compound called peroxynitrite. The nitric oxide is destroyed before it ever reaches the smooth muscle. The artery never receives the signal to open. And peroxynitrite is not merely a byproduct. It actively damages the eNOS enzyme that was producing the nitric oxide. Less nitric oxide means less protection against superoxide. Less protection means more destruction. The cycle accelerates. The artery's ability to relax degrades faster and faster as the oxidative environment worsens. Your body is sending the message. Something is killing the messenger before it arrives. The clinical term for this failure is endothelial dysfunction. It is the earliest measurable stage of cardiovascular disease. It precedes detectable plaque. It precedes elevated blood pressure at the clinic. The endothelium is failing silently while the standard workup shows nothing wrong. Blood pressure medication forces the door open through pharmaceutical chemistry. It cannot stop the superoxide radicals from destroying the nitric oxide. The moment the medication leaves the system, the door closes again because the underlying interception has never been addressed. The Aviram trial's 21-point systolic drop was not from forcing the smooth muscle. It was from eliminating the radical that was preventing the nitric oxide from reaching it. The body fixed its own mechanism. The factory started delivering again. The artery did what it had been trying to do for years. Punicologens act as a biological umbrella for nitric oxide. They neutralize the superoxide radicals that have been intercepting the signal. They extend the biological half-life of nitric oxide from milliseconds, too brief to reach the smooth muscle, to seconds, long enough for the message to arrive. That 21-point drop is what happens when the mechanism is restored rather than bypassed. We are almost at number 1. But before I get there, I need to tell you about a trap that caught Margaret and Barbara from Sacramento, and frankly, most of the seniors who add pomegranate to their routine and see nothing change. A woman named Barbara was 68 years old and lived in Sacramento, California. She had watched a video about pomegranate's cardiovascular benefits. She went to a grocery store that same afternoon and bought 3 bottles of pomegranate juice. Sweet, red, labeled with heart health imagery. She drank 8 ounces every morning for 4 months. She told her daughter she was doing something good for her heart. Her doctor said it sounded fine. Her imaging showed no improvement at the 6-month follow-up. Her fasting blood sugar had gone up. Her cardiologist noted mild insulin resistance not present at the previous measurement. Neither of them connected it to the juice. Why would they? Pomegranate is healthy. The pasteurization had destroyed every punicologen in the bottle. The heat required to create commercially stable juice eliminates the polyphenol enzymes that produce every mechanism we have discussed. What remained was concentrated fructose, generating the oxidative stress and insulin response that actively damages the glycocalyx, the protective coating on the inside of arterial walls. The sweet, commercially perfect liquid she had been buying was doing the opposite of what she intended. Here is the part that will reframe how you look at a fresh pomegranate. The part of the fruit with the highest punicologen concentration is not the red seeds. The red seeds are largely fructose. The medicine is in the white, spongy, intensely bitter inner pith and in the leathery outer peel, the parts that look like waste, the parts every senior cuts off and drops into the trash without a second thought. The medicine is in the garbage. Barbara switched to a whole fruit preparation the following morning. She came back 4 months later with a look her daughter described as equal parts relief and fury. Relief because it explained why nothing had changed. Fury because she had spent 16 weeks buying 3 bottles of fructose per week from a store displaying heart health labels. Now, number 1. And I want you to stay with me for this because it is the most surprising mechanism in this entire video. It is the one that determines whether everything else we have discussed actually works for your specific body, and most seniors have never considered it. Number 1, the gut factory that decides whether the medicine gets made at all. The primary antioxidant compound in pomegranate is called ellagic acid. And here is the part that sounds impossible. Ellagic acid is completely useless to the human body on its own. Human cells cannot absorb it. They cannot use it. It passes through the gut unchanged. What your gut bacteria do with it is everything. Specific symbiotic bacteria in the gut microbiome take the ellagic acid that your cells cannot absorb and transform it into a molecule called urolithin A. This is not a minor metabolite. Urolithin A enters the bloodstream, travels to the heart muscle and the endothelial cells lining the arteries, and triggers a process called mitophagy, the body's internal cellular recycling program. What urolithin A specifically targets is old, inefficient, toxin-leaking mitochondria in the cardiac cells, the aging power plants that are running dirty and generating oxidative damage from inside the heart muscle itself. Urolithin A identifies those damaged mitochondria, eliminates them, and forces the heart to build clean, efficient replacements. It de-ages the cardiac tissue at the cellular level. A 2022 study published in the European Heart Journal gave Urolithin A supplementation to adults with heart failure and reduced ejection fraction. Within 4 months, cardiac mitochondrial function had improved significantly, and 6-minute walk distance, a standard measure of cardiovascular capacity, had increased by over 20%. The pomegranate is the raw ingredient. Your gut bacteria are the manufacturing facility. Without a healthy microbiome, the ellagic acid passes through unused. The urolithin A is never made. The cardiac mitophagy never runs. The heart never rebuilds its power plants. This is why two seniors can eat the same fruit and have completely different outcomes, not because of the fruit, because of who is living in their gut. Research published in the European Journal of Nutrition found that only about 40% of people produce urolithin A at all after consuming ellagic acid. Seniors who have taken multiple courses of antibiotics, who have eaten a low-fiber diet for years, whose gut diversity has been depleted, their bacterial population may be insufficient to run the conversion. The pomegranate passes through. The mechanism is never triggered. The senior wonders why the fruit they added to their morning routine is not moving anything. This is not a reason to give up on pomegranate. It is a reason to address both the raw ingredient and the manufacturing facility at the same time. Now, I want to pause here for a moment because I think you need to hear something that the research does not say directly, but that every clinical story I have described today implies. You are not powerless. Gerald was not powerless. Margaret was not powerless. Barbara was not powerless after she learned the difference between the part that works and the part that is sold in a bottle. What they shared was this. They were given incorrect information by products and systems designed for palatability rather than outcomes. And when they got accurate information and when they applied it consistently, their arteries responded. Because the biology did not change, the inputs changed. Your arteries still heal. Your body still runs the cholesterol efflux mechanism when it receives punicoligins in meaningful concentrations. Your gut bacteria still produce urolithin A if you give them the raw material and stop depleting the populations that run the conversion. Your P1 sniper still wakes up when the right compounds reach the HDL particles carrying it. The same body that built the plaque can rebuild what is behind it. The Aviram trial is not a story about exceptional patients. It is a story about what ordinary arterial biology does when given what it was designed to work with. You watch this far. That is not a casual thing. That is the same impulse that put Gerald in his cardiologist's parking lot asking the question nobody had expected. Let me tell you exactly how to start. 2 approaches. The first is the whole fruit blend. Buy a fresh pomegranate, scoop out the seeds, do not discard the white inner pith. Keep a generous tablespoon of that bitter, spongy white material and add it to your blender with the seeds and 8 ounces of water. Blend it whole. Do not strain it. Drink it. It will taste bitter, astringent, earthy, nothing like the commercial juice. That bitterness is the punixolagins. That is the taste of the medicine before it gets sweetened and sold. The second approach is a standardized whole fruit extract in capsule form, standardized to contain at least 40% punicolagin and ellagic acid content, made from the peel, pith, and seeds processed together. 0 added sugar, no fructose spike. The polyphenol concentration is consistent in every capsule, something a fresh pomegranate cannot guarantee depending on its ripeness and variety. Talk to your doctor before starting any supplement, particularly if you are on blood thinners. Pomegranate has mild antiplatelet activity that matters for certain medication regimens. Continue all prescribed medications exactly as directed. For the gut factory, the microbiome that determines whether urolithin A is produced at all, the most consistent research points to 3 daily additions. Plain full-fat yogurt with live active cultures, a tablespoon or 2 of kimchi or sauerkraut with a meal, and a high-fiber prebiotic source, cooked and cooled potato starch or green banana to feed the specific bacterial populations responsible for ellagic acid conversion. The protocol is simple. The consistency is the medicine. And at your next appointment, ask for 2 things that are not on the standard panel. First, ask for an oxidized LDL measurement, not total LDL, not the ratio. The oxidized fraction, the rust percentage that your statin does not address. The number that would have told Gerald's cardiologist a different story 9 years earlier. Second, ask specifically about carotid intima media thickness imaging, CIMT. This is the exact measurement the Aviram trial used as its primary endpoint. It shows whether the plaque in the arteries feeding your brain is growing, stable, or shrinking. It is not ordered by default. You have to ask for it by name. Those two requests, printed out and brought to your next appointment, will start a conversation your chart has never had. 6 months after Carol moved the ceramic dish to the other side of the kitchen counter, Gerald went back to his cardiologist. Not with lower cholesterol numbers, those were already excellent, with imaging. The CIMT measurement that had never been ordered in 9 years of appointments. Carol sat in the waiting room with the same paperback from 6 months earlier, still on the same page. When Gerald came back out, she looked at his face before he spoke. 43 years of marriage. She knew the difference. He told her the measurement, the direction it had moved. She said, "So it worked." He said, "Something is working." His cardiologist had stood at the imaging screen for a long moment before turning around. He said he wanted to understand exactly what Gerald had changed, not to discourage it, because he had 3 other patients he was thinking about. That is the community I am trying to build here. People who went and found what their cardiologist had not yet looked for. People who brought the question back to the appointment. People who did not accept management as the ceiling when the research says the ceiling is higher than that. You are now one of those people. Pick one step from this video, just one. Ask your doctor about oxidized LDL at your next visit. Add the Pith to the blender this week. Start the Kimchi. Write down which step you are choosing and leave it in the comments below. Just 1 or 2 words. I read every single comment, and when I see 100 people write Pith or CIMT or Kimchi, I know what to go deeper on next week. If this video opened something for you, subscribe and hit the bell. Next week, I am covering the 2 specific morning habits that determine whether your nitric oxide system functions or fails before you even have breakfast. One of them takes 45 seconds. The research on it has been sitting in the hypertension literature for 6 years, and most cardiologists have never mentioned it. Share this with someone you know who has been told their numbers are managed and has still been wondering why they do not feel fully protected. Their statin may be doing exactly what it was designed to do. The rust percentage may be climbing anyway. The scissors may be running right now while the chart says everything is fine. The answer is in the produce section, and now you know which part to keep. Take care of yourself. You deserve this information. I will see you next week.